Welcome, everyone, to the Sonoma Spiel. My name is Tim with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. It's a lovely day in Sonoma. I know every week I say, hey, it's a sunny day. Today, it's not a sunny day. Today, we have the marine layer, which is a beautiful layer of fog that comes in from the San Francisco Bay Area, and it helps the grapes. It caresses them so they can ripen at the right amount. And then around 2 o'clock, the fog breaks up and it becomes a sunny day. And right now, we're having that. Maybe 2:30 sometimes. It all depends. But it is a lovely day in Sonoma Valley, as it always is. And yes, I went to the farmer's market. And yes, I got my delicious food. But what I'm excited about today, listeners, is I have a very special guest. And I know every week I say I have a very special guest. This is a week I actually mean it. Very special. She's coming to us all the way from the southern tip of Sonoma Valley. Jill Gregory with Sonoma Raceway. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Tim.
You bet. Well, thanks for coming up in your race car. That was so cool. I saw you come skidding in, doing a donut, and you took off your helmet.
I was running a little late, so I had to put the afterburners on.
Do you? Okay, I'm just gonna go. Do you ever get a race car as part of your work package? Do you is that part of your compensation?
So there's a couple things. No, yeah? Not a part of the compensation, but I can jump in one if I really need
fantastic.
To. And there's some logoed cars around. So if I really, the problem is if you're driving a logoed car, people know who you are, and I can't drive in my normal style.
Right, that's true. You have to be incognito.
That's right.
That's why you came up in that souped up Prius. Well done.
Correct.
Jill, tell me so people who don't know, Sonoma Raceway might have another name in some old-timers' names. What is Sonoma Raceway? Where is it?
So Sonoma Raceway is an unbelievable 2.5-mile road course nestled right at the entrance of Sonoma Valley. So some folks might know it as Sears Point.
Yes.
There was a naming rights deal out there for a while called Infineon, but it's basically right at 37 and 121, and we are really at the gateway of people entering Sonoma Valley.
Absolutely. And what I love about the raceway is, one, you said it's a road track. So that I think most people think of a raceway as an oval.
Correct.
And people just turn left. Is that the
That's
normal?
Right.
And in Britain, do they turn right? Or do they always turn left? In Australia, they go upside down?
Yeah,
how does that work?
They might just go up through a flaming ring of fire or something. I don't know.
So
that's a great question. A lot of the road courses are more popular in Europe. Maybe that's why.
Maybe because they want to turn right and left. So road course is sort of like if you were to take a pen on a piece of paper and scribble around and make a thing.
So we have 12 turns, and I think what people don't understand or probably appreciate is how much elevation there is. So you go up hills, down hills, blind corners for 2.52 miles, 12 turns.
Wow.
And it's one of the most technical racetracks on any circuit, whether we're running NASCAR or Ferrari Challenge. It's we call it a high consequence racetrack.
Well, that's well done. I'm going to use that. High consequence racetrack.
You can get into trouble in a hurry.
Oh, wow.
And especially when we have some of our enthusiasts out there that maybe their skill is not quite up to par with their, understanding of their own skill. You can get into the wall pretty quickly.
You can have some consequences.
Yes, high consequences.
Okay, so that's also an interesting thing. Road track, but you said enthusiasts. So it's not all 100% professional people with all the logos. Like you guys are available to people who have access to either their own cars or experiences. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think that if we are doing our jobs properly, then there's something going on out there 340 days a year.
Okay.
And that means that the big events that people are very familiar with, like a NASCAR race, is just one weekend out of 50 weekends a year that we might be running. So we have Mercedes-AMG out there right now. They take over the entire paddock and the road course, and AMG owners and drivers and wannabe race car drivers can get out there and race their new models, race their own AMG. So it's really hard to kind of air out your new car on 101. So we're a place to do that.
If you do it on 101, you can do it, but you might be paying a fine.
Yes.
And it might be cheaper just to go to Sonoma Raceway.
It would be cheaper and more fun because you get to play the part of a NASCAR driver.
Do they drive their own cars, or is somebody driving them for them?
So there's a couple of options. So there's a lot of clubs that come out there where you drive your own car. You have a lot of guys or gals that you hang out with, and you guys want to drive together. So we've got a lot of club days like that. Or there are, like in this AMG Academy, they have instructors and they do a lead and follow. So you follow an instructor on the track and learn how to drive it, and then you drive your own car.
Are they like talking to you through a headset or something?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll tell you, I mean, this is for people that really want to get technical, braking zones. Here's when you should shift. Here's how you stay out of trouble. So
here's where you say a Hail Mary.
Yeah, here's where you go, oh, oops.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think there's pretty much any sort of configuration that you would want other than those professional weekends where the track is closed.
Right, so I can't show up there with my own car on NASCAR weekend.
You may not. And in fact,
I mean, I can, but I have to go watch the race.
You can go to SonomaRaceway.com and find out kind of what club days we have and sign up. And it's really, our biggest asset is the track surface. People want to race and they want to go fast, and the love of going fast is universal, and we're a great place to do that.
That's a good thing. So one thing I do want to just early on is mention, I know you guys have, I think, Wednesday night drags, where that's a long-standing Sonoma thing, where if you want to drag race your own car, you can show up. I think you pay a fee and you sign away that your car could get wrecked or whatever, and they race against each other.
They do.
And sometimes the police officers still show up and do race against the cop.
Yeah. So we've actually expanded it a little bit. We do the drags, but it's also drifting. So drifting is kind of increasing in popularity.
Right.
You see a lot of happenings kind of in our surrounding areas with sideshows and things like that.
Yes.
So we've expanded Wednesday night so you can do the drifting. We market that, and you can come drift your own car, drag race your own car. And CHP and local law enforcement is out there, and they do a Top the Cops program where you can race against the cops, and it's the teenagers. So a couple things happen there. We're trying to build that relationship between kind of the youth and law enforcement and make it less scary. And it's always good if you're a 16-year-old and you're drag racing a cop, and you win. There's a little bragging rights there.
And you're not doing it on city streets. So it's like the classic. Like in the early 80s, everyone was complaining about skateboarders. And then somebody's like, hey, why don't we build a skate park?
Well, give them that outlet.
And then there's like a positive thing.
Right.
So I do like seeing that. And
that's I mean, we had one last Wednesday night. We'll have one on the 14th.
Okay.
So 2 weeks, and it's really, it's open and to anyone, as you mentioned, and you can do ride along. So if you don't want to drive, but you want to hang out,
you can do that.
We have food trucks out there, usually some music out there. And so trying to just do a Wednesday community night.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, how long have you been with Sonoma Raceway, Joe?
I started in February of 21. I moved to Sonoma during the pandemic. Was still, it wasn't 2020, so we'll give ourselves a little grace. But moving to a new market, particularly one kind of in this area that had been pretty confined with restrictions, we didn't really have the ability to have a lot of events out there when I first started. So 2 years later, we're kind of open back fully for business.
Where did you come from before this?
I was living in Charlotte. I actually grew up in the Central Valley, so I'm a Northern California girl.
Gotcha. Okay.
I went to Cal Poly.
Oh, go! Wait! Mustangs. Go Mustangs.
Go Mustangs. So Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and then I moved back east to kind of pursue my.
Wait, you grew up in Modesto.
Sports. Yes.
You went to Cal Poly.
Yes.
Weren't you supposed to be growing like raisins or a ranch? Wasn't that the pathway? If you do that, there
were a lot of ag science majors, dairy science majors. I did not follow that path. NASCAR wasn't on the curriculum at Cal Poly for some reason. I'm not sure. So kind of just fast forward, and I had the chance to move back out here when I knew that there was going to be a vacancy from longstanding President Steve Page.
Did you plan on getting into NASCAR when you moved out there? Or
I did not. Well, I was involved in sports marketing. I worked for an agency that did all kinds of sports.
Okay.
But NASCAR was one of them. It wasn't kind of on my bingo card growing up in Northern California at that time. I had gone to my first race at Sonoma Raceway.
Oh, you had? Okay.
But that was just because my cousins wanted to go, and they're like, hey, let's go check it out. But several of the brands that I was involved with, NASCAR was a huge marketing vehicle for them. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. And as you know, you get involved in an industry, you make your connections, you know people, and kind of hopefully one thing leads to another. And then I woke up one day, I'm like, okay, I've been working at NASCAR for 15 years. It's a little bit surreal. It
is kind of funny. You're like, people ask you how you get into tourism. I'm like, I literally have no idea.
I did not sit and say, I want to be a doctor.
I know. I don't know how that happens. Well, so let's talk about NASCAR, because that's like probably the biggest event Sonoma Raceway, one of the biggest events Sonoma Raceway is known for. And it's coming up here in June. It's always a big stop. And it is unique because you mentioned it's not an oval, it's a road track. Do you see a lot of drivers, what's their reaction to coming out here to Sonoma for that race?
Well, I think that everybody circles this weekend on the calendar from a NASCAR standpoint. If you know anything about the NASCAR schedule, they go to a lot of great markets, but they go to a lot of small markets,
Right.
a lot of kind of grouping of tracks in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida. And so we are kind of the breath of fresh air.
Right.
Literally, no humidity, wine country. Everybody is in a good mood.
Great restaurants.
So we are really kind of one of the elite races on the NASCAR calendar. But early on, even when I first got started in NASCAR, road course racing was kind of taboo. It was like, hey, you got to get a ringer. You've got to go get someone that really knows how to do it. I think it was just more technical. You mentioned, people going around and making left turns. The kind of the conventional wisdom is that an oval is an oval. Anybody can do it. And then to do a road course, you've got to have more finesse. You need to turn and shift and just manage your car a little bit better. And there weren't, other than Sonoma, there was one other road course on the schedule, kind of, as recently as 10 years ago or so. And now, probably in the last 5 or 6 years, NASCAR has added more and more road courses. And the drivers are young, they're more proficient, and they do, honestly, Tim, they do a ton of simulation. So they can get on a video game, and there's one called iRacing where they can take and every track is kind of modeled, and they will probably have run 100 times on this simulated Sonoma Raceway before they even get here. So kind of the scariness of a road course doesn't exist as much as it used to.
That must completely change the sport.
It's super fascinating. I mean, even during COVID, when I was at NASCAR, one of the things that we did while we couldn't race physically is that we put virtual racing on our broadcast windows, and the guys are in their basement with their simulators, and their kids are walking through
and then their pajamas too, right? They're like, okay, I'll do it.
And it actually wasn't the intent. The intent was to kind of keep fans
keep them going,
connected, but it humanized the drivers a little bit because their daughter's walking in, pulling the plug, and the dog's running through there.
I said no soda before noon.
So that was kind of an unintended consequence and benefit. But they used to get scared of road courses because they weren't familiar with them. And now with that technology, it kind of takes the scariness out of it.
Yeah, I guess learning in front of a crowd of, 30,000 people is kind of daunting.
Yes.
Learning in your basement with your dog is okay.
Is okay. And you can have a do-over.
Yeah. And I love that NASCAR and auto racing turned into esports or, video game sports.
You have to.
At the perfect time when everyone was kind of doing that anyway. So NASCAR's usually always in June here at Sonoma Raceway. And forgive my ignorance, where there's a season in NASCAR.
Yes.
And does it end at Talladega, start Talladega, Daytona? One of these places, Daytona?
So we used to joke that our season was Valentine's Day to Thanksgiving, which is a very long sports season, and that is true.
That's
so
like professional basketball.
NASCAR starts President's Day weekend, usually in Daytona, at the Daytona 500. Okay. So a little funky because the Super Bowl of NASCAR is the first race of the season and not the last race of the season. And we're smack dab in the middle of that. The way the broadcast works, that part of the NASCAR races are on Fox, part are on NBC. We are about the halfway point. So we're the last Fox race. And they love that because they get to have a big hootenanny and wine country.
You got to figure out the way to have it halfway through. It's and for the thrilling finish, turn now to Channel 12. Wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, and then you earn points, and the person that has the most points wins.
Correct.
Okay. And again, pretend like I know nothing about NASCAR, because as much as I love going to it, I don't really know enough about the actual, how to win.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of fun to listen to, so-and-so's out of contention. I'm like, there's a bunch of races left. It's all these points and stuff. But
so the easiest way is win more. And the drivers want to win. It's like do better.
Right.
So I think that, in years past, there was a highly complicated point system, and you could clinch the championship before that. Yeah. In the recent years, NASCAR has gone to almost an elimination. It goes from 16 playoff drivers to 12 to 8 to 4, and then the winner. But if you win, you don't have to worry about it. You get advanced to the next round. Winning cures everything.
Well done.
Yes.
But even trying, I bet you was fun because you're racing around.
And finishing second can get you better position than
Right.
anything else. But yes, I mean, I think every driver goes out there and win. And what's the Ricky Bobby saying?
If you're not first, you're last.
That's right. Thank you.
Which I love. Okay, yeah, Will Ferrell's so funny. Also, the funny thing in that movie, Will Ferrell, I heard later, and his wife hates him for it. He always tries to run in one scene in his underwear. And they're like, how do you do the NASCAR one? And they pretend like he's on fire or whatever. Which is a serious problem, but it was like running around in his underwear, and they're like, you're fine. And yeah.
I can feel it.
The other stuff that it's not just NASCAR out there. Like I think in the past you've got drag racing, NHRA.
Absolutely. So end of July. So we are June 11th for NASCAR. Mm-hmm. End of July for NHRA, and that's taking Wednesday night drags and putting it on steroids with the baptism by nitro.
It's like rocket ships on wheels.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah,
my first NHRA race at Sonoma, I got the chance to stand right next to the car, and they're like, "You need to put eye protection on. You need to put ear protection." I'm like, why? What's going to happen? Am I going to spontaneously combust?
Yeah.
But when that car takes off, you
can feel it, huh?
You shake.
That must be terrifying being right there.
Cool.
Like you feel it in your body.
But they're like, you want to do it again? I'm like, no, I'm good.
I've had enough of experience on that.
It's like my nose hairs are thin.
Exactly. Like everything's gone. I'm good. And then see the drag racing. Then sometimes, I don't know if motorcycles have been there recently, but sometimes there's motorcycle racing.
We have had motorcycles. Yeah. We had IndyCar a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They kind of flip-flop sometimes between us and Laguna Seca.
Okay.
But a lot of what we're doing now are these, they're races, but they are, I would maybe call them minor leagues. Mm-hmm. You've got Ferrari Challenge, which they're not Ferrari race car drivers, but they are people that own Ferraris that are competitive and race in kind of a gentleman's league, if you will. So kind of, I don't know, you play tennis or golf. It's being like at your local club. You come out and you so have bragging rights amongst the rest of the Ferrari drivers. Yes. So,
well, they'll bring their Ferraris to the town, plaza here. They'll
will.
Come to the horseshoe and they line it up. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, and I've had a few folks in town saying, they definitely know when the Ferrari drivers are in town because that's who's walking around the plaza.
It is kind of funny, right? The skinny jeans and the tight jackets.
Right, short and
is that like
socks.
A thing? Is that like a Ferrari thing?
Well, it's not. I think it's just maybe a European thing, but definitely Ferrari. Like I went to my first Ferrari Challenge. I'm like, I better up my game.
Yeah,
like
your
I
costume.
need to go buy some
what
designer.
Are you doing? Don't buy that stuff from Kohl's, lady.
No,
come on, it's
that
Ferrari.
did not fly.
Sometimes going back to your big events, some people, my understanding, can camp there on site. Tell me about that.
So we have one of the better camping experiences. So we have trackside camping. Okay. So you might not be able to see it as you kind of go by us on 121, but if you go kind of up the hill, there are trackside camping spots that look over the track. So you can be in your camper, your RV, and you kind of have your whole setup there. And, our fans are very serious about the setup, the flags, the food.
They set up a village
and
they are looking down.
They load in on Thursday at 10 a.m. before the race and stay until Monday. So that's not a, pregame tailgate.
And where are they coming from?
They're coming from, we will probably have all 50 states.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We have a few kind of outliers, a lot of folks from Canada, and we have a lot of West Coast fans.
Okay.
So, there aren't a ton of West Coast stops on the NASCAR circuit. So we get a lot of Oregon, Washington, Portland, Denver.
This is their chance to come down and see it.
Idaho. Wow. Southern California, they just closed one of the NASCAR tracks down there. So we're actually drawing a lot from LA. Okay. But, people like to come to Sonoma. Of course.
Right.
So we get a lot of people that like racing, but it's not the only reason they're coming.
Gotcha.
So that's great for the community, too.
That is great. We always like it.
That's right.
It's a big thing. Are there any, Sonoma Raceway is pretty big. Are there any non-racing or non-automotive racing things that happen there or people can kind of experience the track, things like that?
Yeah, so most of the time, our activities will have racing overtones or some sort of connection, and that's kind of our commitment to the track or to the community, that we're not going to have concerts and things like that. But we have done a lot of charity events out there. The Raceway 5K we did for the first time this year. We actually we've hosted some like a trade show, some
Okay.
local communities, destination management companies out there. So we have a new building, Turn 11, as you know.
Tell me about that. What's that about?
It's a new 19,000 square foot kind of hospitality building, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better term, but it's nestled right at the
At Turn 11?
apex of Turn 11.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of went through this whole branding exercise of what do we call it? You
Right.
know, and I'm like, we're trying to out clever ourselves. Like,
Right.
let's call it what it is.
Right. It's right there.
like-
That way people can find it.
Right.
Right.
And let's not try to get too, marketing speak
You know,
with
Jill,
it.
you just dropped a very good marketing tip. Sometimes it's better to be clear than clever.
I mean, like, who are we trying to impress? What are we trying to communicate? And if we're going to spend more time telling people what it is,
Right.
then why are we
Then
bothering?
you're having a hard time. So
Yeah.
Turn 11 is this neat hospitality suite where people can rent it out, is my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's kind of modular. It can be a big meeting space for 1,000 people. It can be a place where you want to have a team building. You know, we at Sonoma Raceway have a holiday party. We had that there.
Okay.
It's got a great, beautiful outdoor patio with a beautiful view. As you mentioned, the fog's kind of rolling in.
Right.
Down the Petaluma Gap over there. Yeah. But, I mean, it's an unbelievable setting. Okay. And I think that there wasn't really a place like that before we built this building. So you still have all the great things that the track has, but now you have a destination place where we don't have to, build a tent or kind of have people have a table set up in a garage. Yeah, it's absolutely part of the racetrack experience.
And because, just so I understand, there's people out there. They have garages on the grounds, you know, like the go-kart area, or they work on their own cars out there. Yeah. So anytime you go to the track, even on non-race days, something's usually happening.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a buyout or rent out, or even people just wrenching on their cars, doing stuff.
I mean, there are tenant shops out there. Those are fully functioning small businesses out there, and they are, people are storing their cars out there. I mean, the buildings themselves, you kind of drive by, they kind of blend in, nondescript. If you open up those garage doors, or I'm driving by there, I'm like, wow, there's an unbelievable collection of cars back there. Right. People are storing their go-karts. There's a couple of welding shops in there. There's a t-shirt shop, like graphic design. And so I think that there's some folks that have been kind of doing business out there for quite some time. And most of it is somewhat tangentially related to racing or motorsports. But yeah, there's something and somebody on property basically 24/7.
Yeah, I drive up there, and you got to sign in a little waiver sheet when you come there.
Absolutely.
But then you might hear someone just whipping around, and that could be from the racing school or just some people out there having a good time. And what's the go-kart track? What's that all about?
So it is the state's longest go-kart track, and if you are up there and the wind's blowing the right way, you can see the city skyline. You can see all of San Pablo Bay. I mean, it's an unbelievable. There's no other kart track out there that has that. And actually, we're putting some investment in there too. So instead of being kind of a dusty parking lot and a small little building, it's like we are hosting a lot of corporate events, team building events. Neat. A lot of folks come from the city. They're trying to get out, and especially during COVID, we tried to reinvent ourselves a little bit because we were one sport or one activity that it was social distancing by design. You're in the car with a helmet, with a suit. And that piece of our business really took off because we had kind of a self-contained activity, and people were so hungry to get out and get, around other folks that we kind of built a really good business there. So we're putting some lipstick on the kart track a little bit. And I mean, it's a one-of-a-kind facility up there.
And these like go-karts, but not the kind you see that you made in your garage. They're a little more advanced.
They're a little more
faster.
Advanced.
Right.
Yeah. But they're still small, low to the ground. I mean, you can whip around there pretty fast. You feel like
you're going really fast. You are going really fast. Yes. And then when you're that low to the ground, it's like,
your center of gravity and like the feeling of speed is pretty crazy.
It's a good perception.
And we're looking at some e-karts. So they've got a lot of electronic
That'll
karts.
Be neat.
So,
is that kind of the future of like a lot of racing that... Because I hear electric cars and motorcycles have incredible torque, and they can just like go. They're heavy, but they go.
And my feeling is, and our feeling is at Sonoma Raceway, is if we aren't the track where you're trying the green technology or the new innovations, then where else would you go to test that? So if there are electronic go-karts that we could be having out there, we've done some biofuel testing, we've done some Rivian before they
I'm seeing a bunch of Rivians around town now.
I saw that too. So I guess it was a year and a half ago, right before they went public, they rented the track out for a few days, and they wanted to do a proof of concept to show kind of some potential investors and customers that the Rivian trucks could do everything that a quote-unquote regular truck can do.
And get out before the Tesla truck.
And they did it. And now I'm seeing them
I've seen them around town. And it's funny how, you're just seeing the share of just normal cars that are electric. It's just growing every year.
Well, I think the stigma was that they couldn't perform as well or whatever those misconceptions were, and now they're ubiquitous. So we can, and we should be testing more of that at our facility. We've got the space to do it.
It's neat. And there's even like YouTube videos of this guy he was on an e-bike, right? And he got the thing going like 90 miles an hour by obviously this is not allowed, but he reconfigured it. I'm thinking, this is insane. This is a bicycle. What's going to happen once you get to like a motorcycle or a race car? It's going to be crazy.
It's insane. We vacation usually down at the beach in Newport Beach, and you're on the Strand. And now you're like, these e-bikes come because it's just a little bike path, right? And you're walking and you've got your headphones on, and all of a sudden I'm like, this guy goes by, he's going 60 miles an hour.
They're going really fast. Yeah, they're going to have to figure that one out.
But we haven't had an e-bike race out there, but I guess never say never.
You never know. I did know. In the past, I think down Cougar Mountain, you had a mountain bike race.
We did. Yes.
Which was very clever. But and Cougar Mountain is the hill or the mountain that's kind of to the west of the track, and it kind of looks back at the track, and that's a neat place.
But, it is. It's beautiful up there.
E-bike race. Okay, I'm ready for it. I want to talk about the most important thing here, Joel. Okay. And this is like something that's goes to the hard-hitting issue of Sonoma Raceway.
Great.
Sheep. I understand that there are these poor orphaned sheep out there that I can adopt through an Adopt a Sheep program. Could you explain to me what this is? And I'm assuming this isn't a way to get mutton. This is something completely different. Talk to me.
No mutton allowed. So Sonoma has been famous for the sheep. I think at one point they were branded the woolly weeders. They are all over the place now. They're kind of in a bit of disarray because half of them are shorn and half of them are not. So some of them look like goats and sheep, and they're loud. When we drive in the morning, they are making their presence known.
Really? They're there.
But they get about as close to the track as anything in terms of getting some of the weeds out of there. And we've got to get the property ready for NASCAR. I mean, there's going to be fans walking around there.
So you rather than send out an army of lawnmowers, we have a bunch of sheep.
We have a bunch of sheep, and you'll see them in 50 acres, which is our campground across 121. We have cows on the backside of the property, but they don't get close enough. The sheep, the noise doesn't bother them. The, engines revving doesn't bother them. They're eating, and this year they're fat.
Oh, really? Good. Well, you had a lot of good rain.
Because there's been so much rain. There's so many weeds out there. And so Sonoma's always been known for the sheep, and we're constantly looking for ways to raise money for Speedway Children's Charities, because all the money we raise goes directly back into Sonoma Valley charities.
Right. And what is that Speedway Charities? What does that do?
So basically, it's a national effort across all the tracks that are owned by Speedway Motorsports, but the way it's structured is that we are each track is its own chapter. We have our own board of directors. And we are guaranteed that the money we raise goes back into the community. So we don't raise money and it goes back to corporate or it goes to another Charlotte market or Atlanta or anywhere else. So we raise the money all year, and then at the end of the year we have a grant process, and almost all of the local charities and the folks that you would know are part of that process. And so the more money we raise, the more money in the pot at the end that we can distribute out. So I was looking around one day, and our charity director, Courtney Keyser, and we're looking at the sheep, and we both kind of look at each other. You can adopt a star, you can adopt a panda. I'm like, why can't we adopt a sheep?
You should adopt a sheep. I love it.
It was one of my friends at NASCAR said, "Hey, where's my sheep?" When I would start, and I'm like, okay, well, how can we do this?
You better
and
take
at one point,
that
I was thinking
and
we
flip
could,
it, right?
Yeah, I thought we could tag them. No.
Right.
All right, let's just do a plush toy, but you can support. And so you can have your certificate of adoption, Tim. You can name it whatever you'd like.
Right.
And you'll have just your sheep.
My own
and
sheep
if you
there.
want to, if you want to come find that sheep on race weekend, I wouldn't recommend
You're like,
that.
it's the fluffy one
Yeah,
over there.
the really pretty one.
Yes, that's the smart one.
But you don't want to know where they went after the race. You just want to know that your contribution helps Sonoma Valley.
So do the other racetracks don't have animals? They don't have ungulates walking around.
They do not. They
good.
might have animals they're not aware of. I've seen a couple, prairie dogs run across the track in Texas, but our sheep are unique, and I don't think another track has any animals on the payroll like we do.
Like you literally are like a sheep herder who's like, you got to come get
and we
your
do
sheep.
have a sheep
I love
herder,
that.
sheep dogs. We got the whole thing.
See, that's smart. That's
we have
great.
bees, we have honey, we've got
Oh, you do?
cows. We do.
You have beehives on property.
We do.
Okay.
And we're trying to look at, before it was like we just collected the honey and kind of shipped it off, and now we're going to bottle or jar Sonoma Raceway honey. So coming soon.
That would be kind of, after Indianapolis 500, they drink milk.
Right.
It could be a really slow, ponderous, they're trying to drink some honey.
And slightly more messy.
But plenty of time for logos to go on the bottom of the screen.
Sponsor friendly for sure. For sure.
That would be Sonoma Raceway honey. When you mentioned the kids and the children's charities, what I like about Sonoma Raceway is there are activities out there for families. Yes. A lot of people come up to Sonoma Valley, and while we certainly do have a lot of family things, the plaza and the farmers markets, there are things that kids can do. Can you speak a little bit about, if I'm going out to the Raceway for NASCAR, are there things that my kids can do and things like that?
Yeah, so at a NASCAR weekend, we do a pretty dedicated effort towards our kids zone. We have a kids club. This is when you've come out to the race, and to your point, you can only walk around so much with your mom and dad. It's we've got a kids zone where you can build a race car. We're having driver appearances out there. We'll do a My First Race button. There's some engineering, cool. Kind of NASCAR has a great STEM program that we borrow a lot of their materials. So we're not really encouraging parents to drop their kids off.
Yeah, this is not daycare.
This is not daycare.
This is family-focused activities.
I mean, we can make sure that there's activities so that, when you're trying to plan a long day out there, that there's some stimulation for the kids other than the loud cars. And
take a break.
And so we'll have a couple of characters out there. There's a Lego table. We've got a ramp that we use actually at the zucchini races. So we're bringing the zucchini race ramp out.
They do a zucchini race here at the farmers market, brought to you by Sonoma Raceway. And crucially, you've got to find either a very aerodynamic zucchini or is it a heavy zucchini? There's a lot of debate.
There is a lot of debate.
What makes for a fast zucchini?
And as a judge last year, I had to get very discerning about which kind of the makeup of those zucchinis.
I'd like to say you should X-ray those. See if people are putting lead in the front of those zucchinis or putting some graphite on the wheels.
God, we could have a scandal.
Maybe a scandal. And then people will talk about it. And then at the end, you give the zucchini to the sheep. I mean, there's no lead in it, I hope, at that moment.
I hope not.
Right.
Yeah.
The clean organic zucchini.
Right.
That's the way it is. Jill, before we go too far, and you're going to help me answer some questions, but before we go, if people have questions about Sonoma Raceway, I'm assuming you have a website.
We absolutely do.
How do they find that information?
They get on SonomaRaceway.com. We also have live people answering the phones.
Real human beings.
You mentioned... sometimes you need questions. It's not as intuitive maybe to know which ticket to buy, where to go, what time. So 1-800-870-RACE.
Okay.
So we've got we call it the Ticket Cave right now, full of young, enthusiastic.
Like on the phone, operators are standing by.
That's right. Get your Sports Illustrated.
It's like your Time Life books.
Your fleece. But SonomaRaceway.com will have everything you need. And then if you need kind of one-on-one help, you can definitely call and talk to our folks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Joe, we've come to that part of the podcast where you become an expert. Like I know you're an expert, of course, on NASCAR and auto racing, and it sounds like marketing and branding. But you're going to help us out because we run 2 visitor centers, one at the Plaza, one at Vianza Winery, and we get all sorts of questions. Yeah. All sorts of questions. And this week, you're going to help me answer some of those questions in what we call We Get Questions.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So some of these are kind of off the wall. And if you don't know, happy to help or just take a quick guess.
Love it.
And of course, you can go to SonomaValley.com and lots of answers there. But here's one we got this week. Here it comes. I flew here from Greece. Then I took a bus from San Francisco to Petaluma, and then another bus to Sonoma, and then I walked up to the cemetery. My question, how do I find out where my grandfather is buried? Now, I like this question because most visitors come here are kind of like transient, but his grandfather's here.
Right.
He's here. He's buried somewhere. We were assuming he meant the historic cemetery, which is up on the mountain. Right. There's a nice trail called the Overlook Trail, and there's the mountain cemetery there where many notable people are buried. If you have an idea on how to find out where his grandfather is buried, happy to entertain it.
I was going to say Google, so if you've got a better answer, Ancestry.com.
So, Joe, it's so funny you mentioned that. The cemetery itself keeps logs from everybody from 1970 and before up at that cemetery. And the city actually operates 4 cemeteries. But you're right. If you go to Google, you can go to the Sonoma County Historical Society, and they do have, if you look up the person's last name, it'll tell you which cemetery they're at and roughly which plot. And then you could probably talk to the people at the cemetery. Right. It's worth visiting, even if your grandfather is not buried up there. It's worth going to check out the mountain cemetery because there are many notable people from Sonoma's history up there. And it's just a beautiful place. And it's right on the trail that you can, like I said, the overlook, you can hike and see everything. And it's just, it's a little odd, but some people like going to cemeteries. So there you go. Yeah. And, we've had destination weddings. I don't know why I don't have destination funerals. I'll work on it. Maybe it's the next big trend.
Maybe. Maybe.
You never know. All right, you did good there. Good job. Because Google was the right answer.
Okay.
Right, good job.
1 for 1.
So here's another one. Could you please recommend a winery with food options available for lunch around Glen Ellen or Kenwood? And you live here in Sonoma.
I do live in Sonoma, so I'll probably defer to you on this one, Tim. Mm-hmm. Although whenever I have a question on where to go or what partners from a winery standpoint to go to, I call my friends at the Vintners Association.
Oh, good. Yeah, they're smart. Yeah.
But I'll let you take this one, given your familiarity with the area.
Well, so Glen Ellen and Kenwood is north of the town, and it's on the way to Santa Rosa. A lot of times people are asking for food. They either want a restaurant, and a lot of wineries don't have restaurants per se. Sometimes that's because of the permitting issue or the licensing, or they're like, hey, we're a winery. Right. We're not a restaurant. But there are a lot of restaurants that are right in the middle of vineyards. Right. So one is called Salt and Stone. That's right in the middle of the vineyards in Kenwood. If you go to Glen Ellen Star is a beautiful restaurant in Glen Ellen. You can't see the vineyards, but they're not far away, and there's wineries. However, there are wineries with food options that aren't restaurants per se. For example, St. Francis Winery has an excellent food and wine pairing. It's basically a meal. VJB, which is in Kenwood, has an Italian-style piazza with pizza and gelato and things like that. You kind of order it, and it's not like a full sit-down kind of restaurant, but it's a food option. Yeah. So there are a lot of choices out there that most wineries will also have food available with their tasting. So, it's hard to recommend a winery without food probably because they'll have something, but there you go. Okay. We have grapes because that makes wine.
Yes, we do.
Mediterranean style food, which also means olives are also Mediterranean. So someone asked today, some Swiss people, if you can imagine, asked in one of their 4 official languages, are there any places to taste and buy local olive oil?
Well, that's an easier one for me because, I make the commute, a beautiful commute, I might add, better than anyone I've ever had in my career, up and down 121 every day, and I pass the olive press right down the road from us. Good job. And I just, we love to kind of support our neighbors, whether it's the wineries, the fruit basket, you name it. And so olive press would be kind of my first response.
That's a great answer. That's right by Klein and Jacuzzi Wineries. So if you leave Sonoma Raceway and you take a left heading north, you'll within about 7 minutes be at the olive press. Right. And they have great selection. They have olive oil with both from here, but stuff that has like Meyer lemon in it, different flavors. Olive oil is a very California thing to cook with. Yes. We go through a lot of olive oil at my house, and it's light, but when you do a tasting, there's like different flavors. There's like nutty flavors, and you can kind of get that taste, sort of like with wine. How this is from this region, and it's neat. So yeah, okay, good job, Olive Press. Well done.
Absolutely.
And then if you just want a bottle, run away, Sonoma Market, the grocery store. You can just get some there.
Our olive oil and wine selections just at the grocery store here, I think kind of people get surprised
It
by
is
the
funny,
variety.
especially people want to buy a bottle of wine. They'll ask me, usually around 6 o'clock at night, they said, we just want to buy a couple bottles. I said, look, most of the wineries close by about 5 o'clock.
Right.
Ironically enough, our local market, Sonoma Market, and even our local Safeway have a really good wine selection, like surprisingly good.
Really good.
Which we would expect,
Yes.
right? So, you can go to the grocery store and see good stuff.
Absolutely.
And you probably would not find this in another
You would not.
city.
No.
Probably not another NASCAR city is my
Definitely
guess.
not.
No.
Like even my friends are like, "Can we go to Safeway and grab some wine?" I'm like, we don't get this at our local store.
We had Canadians in today who were amazed that they could buy liquor and wine at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because they have national things. I know even some states have that. So
Yeah, I don't think that they're South Carolina. I think you can't. So those it's not a foregone conclusion. You can find it anywhere, and certainly not the wine selections that we have.
That's actually another question we had. What's the proper way to eat barbecue? Is it with mustard or is it with vinegar or ketchup, or what's the right answer?
You're going to really get me in trouble, Tim, with some of the NASCAR fans.
Nobody's listening. Just tell me which state does it right.
Tomato-based sauce, a mustard-based sauce,
state does
a
it right,
vinegar-based
Jill?
sauce. I think the North Carolina barbecue, is not so thick and heavy, so it kind of makes the taste of the meat stand out a little bit.
The lighter
better.
vinegar-based one, and sometimes, So the heavier one, it was also kind of sugary sometimes.
Right,
and
that's kind of Texas, like that's the further west that you get.
Right.
And but this Carolina barbecue is almost an orangey looking sauce, like light orange yellow.
Okay.
Versus like the heavy red tomato paste looking sauces.
What I love, it's because certain regions of the country, you can come to blows with the person you're talking with about barbecue.
No question.
Here,
Kansas City, also a place.
I hear it's a good place.
Very much the heavier sauce with a lot of...
And the white bread, and you sop it up.
Yes.
Luckily in Sonoma, we will not fight you over that.
No.
But farmers markets, over which one's better, we'll wrestle on that one.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you go to the Petaluma market? What are you, a barbarian? Jeez. Here's another question we got. This is weird. Someone just walked up and asked me this question today.
Okay.
Can you imagine? I'm a big fan of DJ Diesel, who is one of the taller DJs out there. Do you know if he has any upcoming shows nearby? It's weird that someone asked me that today, but what are the odds? Have you heard of this guy, DJ
Well,
Diesel?
I will say that he does have a show, coincidentally, on June 11th at Sonoma Raceway.
Okay.
So DJ Diesel, a.k.a. Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, he has another job.
He has another job.
This is a side job.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and he's quite good at it and has a robust tour schedule.
For real?
Yes. He has a DJ set. He plays internationally. I think one of his shows in Belgium, there were crowd control issues, and it was kind of pandemonium. No injuries,
Right, but just people wanted to see him.
Absolutely.
So wait, he doesn't show up with like a Spotify list on his phone and hit play.
He does
He legit
not.
does DJ stuff.
He definitely, he's got a stage, he's got a back line, and all the things that we're learning because we've got to make sure he has all the things that he needs. He's flying in from Las Vegas the night before, where he plays, I wouldn't call it a residency, but a semi-residency. And you know how in Vegas now they have all these pool clubs.
People build you a theater, and the next thing you know, Brittany's there getting towels.
Yeah, the pool lounge at the Encore quite a bit. And then he's playing Bonnaroo Festival.
Oh.
So, he is a legit DJ, in demand when he's not broadcasting the NBA Finals. And we tried to get him to come to Sonoma last year.
Right.
And the Warriors
were
in the NBA Finals. We actually thought that might be a help.
Right.
But it just didn't work out. But he said, hey, I would love to come back next year. And so he will be here Sunday, June 11th at Sonoma Raceway.
And is that at the main raceway, or is it certain, where's it going to be?
It'll be right on the front stretch, right in front of the grandstand. So we're building a stage for him. And he's got his DJ booth, if you will, and he will come out, and he's got smoke machines and all of the things, and he will play before the race
the race starts.
So you can buy a race ticket, you can buy a pre-race pass to get up close and personal.
Okay.
Or you can just be there to kind of soak in the ambiance, because when a race is happening, there's just a lot going on.
Yes.
And now we're gonna have a 7-foot DJ on top of it.
And was DJ Diesel the name he actually goes by, or did he invent this name for Sonoma Raceway?
No, DJ Diesel
That's
is actually his
so
name.
it works for automotive stuff.
Shaq has given himself several nicknames over the course of his career, but DJ Diesel, I think, is the one that's the most apropos now.
Okay,
and
right.
he has a tour schedule. If you Google it,
I will Google.
He's got a full schedule.
Okay. Well, I'm just amazed. I'm so
glad
happy
that
you're
somebody
doing that.
knew enough to know that he might be nearby.
Yeah, they're like, "Where's DJ Diesel?" So these things happen. Joel, you're a very good guest, so I really appreciate you coming by and stopping. Again, if people have more questions about Sonoma Raceway, what's the best place for them to get that information?
I would go to sonomaraceway.com first.
Okay.
There'll be everything that's happening there, whether it's a NASCAR weekend related, or you want to know kind of those clubs that we talked about, or different times you can come out, information on Wednesday night drags and drifts, sonomaraceway.com, but you can call us. We are there.
With
we
real
are
people.
in the office. We are an event-based business,
Right.
so we're there all the time.
Okay.
800-870-RACE, or stop by. I mean, we are at a place when, you can pull in and you've got the folks right there at the gate that can direct you in the right place. We love to have people come out and see us.
And you can see the sheep that you adopted.
You can see the sheep.
It's the fluffy one.
Absolutely, the pretty one.
The pretty one.
The pretty ones.
Fantastic, Jill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for everybody else listening, if you like this podcast, and I know you do if you've listened this long, please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and give us a big rating, Mom and Dad. Talk to you soon. And thanks for listening. Go to SonomaValley.com for more information. Bye-bye.